Fear is the path to the dark side.
And it's also illegal in a free society to go to the government and say, I want to send the government to my neighbor to take from my neighbor what I want from him to take care of me. The best rule to follow is the Bastiat rule. They say, the Bastiat rule is if you and I can't do it, like we can't counterfeit money, the government shouldn't be able to do it either. A lot of people don't accept liberty because they're frightened by it, intimidated, they don't understand it. They have been told for years that the free market doesn't work, that the Depression came because of free market capitalism and the gold standard. And that's been ingrained in our system. It's been taught for generations now. Except in the last decade, especially the last 5 years, guess what? The information is getting out. The truth is getting out, and thank goodness for the internet. But you know, we had a victory of sorts a couple of months ago when SOPA and SIPA were about to be passed, and many of you wrote and said no, 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 and they withdrew it from the House floor and the Senate floor. But this very week, they're going to be bringing up another one. It's every bit as bad and maybe worse. It's seductive, and it has to be defeated as well. Mike Rogers has that bill, and if you haven't told your representative about it, let them know that you don't need that bill. We don't want the bill. It's an attack on the internet, all because they want to protect privacy, of course. So we have to do whatever we can to protect the privacy and the integrity of the internet, because this is the way the information is spread. But we know that there are so many more people today that know about what's going on, and they are seeking the truth. And this is what life should always be about, is seeking the truth and trying to find out what really is happening. And governments resist this. Governments don't want you to know the truth. The governments have this tendency of turning things upside down. Our government was strongly said that the Fourth Amendment was written to protect your privacy. And that if you have a free society, that you should have open government. Now we have totally secret government, and you have no privacy left. We need to reverse that. We had a grand experiment, the best in the history of the world, and we drifted away from it 100 years ago. All of a sudden, for some reason, they started dividing freedom up into two pieces: economic freedom and social freedom. And that isn't the case. It has to be one and the same. If it's your life, it's your lifestyle, and it's your money, and it should be one thing, and that is the protection of liberty with limitation of government. So we don't have to go back to the Dark Ages. They accuse us, oh, you're going back to the Dark Ages in the 19th century. Well, some good things were started in there, but we want to improve on it. We want to build on it. It was a short test, and freedom is a new idea in the history of time. Run to win is very important. I've won elections on 12 times, and that sort of puts a stamp of approval on what we're doing. So we don't know exactly what the outcome is, but we do know that the continuation of the spirit of liberty will persist no matter what, and that's what really counts as well. So it's hard to say about how the time will be and when things will happen and when it could get worse, but it is going to get worse if we don't change things. We cannot continue to run up deficits of $1.5 trillion a year and print the money and try to tell people around the world there's so much resentment against us that we'll have to face up to it, and we will be facing up to it when there's a bankruptcy crisis, which means the rejection of the dollar. We can't keep printing dollars and expect the world to take care of us by taking our money. And this will come, and then interest rates will rise, and there'll be higher prices, and we will have no more people believing anymore what the government tells us. Oh, there's no inflation, everything is just fine and dandy, and there's full employment when the employment rate is probably closer to 20%. No, the time will come. It could come in a month or two, or a year or two or three, but we are prepared. Our numbers are growing. We know what the message is. We're getting more and more people in places. There are state party operations throughout the country. The news this past week in our campaign on delegate counts has been fantastic. It's been very good. And you know, one of the litmus tests of when a campaign starts to fade, two things happen. One, the money dries up, and the other, nobody shows up. But I tell you what, we're still getting a lot of people showing up even in tough weather. And guess what? The money bombs are still working. Thank you very much. So that is a vote of approval, and no reason why we're going to be walking away. And this will continue. So once again, I want to really thank you for coming out. You're a real inspiration. Is a society that will provide the best chance for obtaining peace and prosperity, and that is what I sincerely believe. In a personal way, I think of what a free society is all about is ownership of our own lives and responsibility for ourselves. For me, I would suggest that it is a worthy cause, and that is to seek excellence and virtue. Governments can't do that for us, and if you think that's a worthwhile venture in life, this can only be done in a free society. So seeking virtue and excellence and seeking a society that offers peace and prosperity, we have logic on our side, and we also have the humanitarian instinct on our sides, because they tell us too often that we don't care about the poor. If you care about the poor and you care about prosperity and you care about peace, the only way you can achieve that is through free markets and sound money and individual liberty. That is the move. That is the answer. So continue our efforts. This campaign has a few months left to it. It's not going to end like some people pretend. You know, the media says, "Where's Ron Paul gone? Where's Ron Paul gone? Where's his campaign?" I want to know. Where's the media been? But anyway, spread the message, be optimistic, and have fun doing it. Thanks a lot.
Let us look at the actions taken in regard to Sudan by Clooney and his cocaine-addled Hollywood colleagues, by Bush and Obama, Lindsey Graham and John McCain, Joe Lieberman and Hillary Clinton, and by the prime ministers of France and Britain and the leaders of the UN. The decision to permanently divide Sudan was in essence a decision by the US-led West first to take a long-established Muslim-majority nation, intervene in its national internal affairs, and dividing it, creating two sovereign states where only one had existed. Second, to take the newly fashioned state, cleverly called South Sudan, and give it to a Christian population that had long and violently fought the UN-recognized Muslim-majority government in Khartoum. Third, to give the new state of South Sudan more than 70% of Sudan's oil reserves and support the construction of new pipelines through Kenya for the export of that oil, which will replace the pipelines that now move the oil through Sudan for export. These actions removed from Khartoum's control Sudan's only major source of income, and once the new pipelines are completed, will likewise deny the Sudanese the monies they would have earned from the transit of oil through their country. Fourth, the West intervened to draw a boundary between the two states that not only denied the Sudanese their major source of revenue, but which divided, as the British were specialized in the 19th century, into the territories of rival religious, ethnic, and tribal groups, which have long conducted their economic and agricultural activities in a region where borders were tribal and flexible and porous and not political and fixed. To measure our leaders' stupidity, or more politely, their limited level of common sense, we might ask whether in an era when America's Islamist enemies are motivated by their belief that Washington, its allies, and the UN, A, intervene in the Muslim world whenever and for whatever reasons they see fit, B, conduct a foreign policy that is designed to destroy Islam, C, regard Muslim lives as cheap and less valuable than the lives of Westerners, Christians, and Jews, and D, to seek to attain full control of the Muslim world's oil reserves, it was really wise to rip a large part of Muslim Sudan's territory away and give it to an avowedly Christian government. In this context, it may well be that Senator Grassley's term stupid is exactly the correct adjective to apply to all the individuals from both parties. The media, the academy, and the military who are engaged in making such detrimental and war-causing policies towards Sudan and the Islamic world as a whole. In closing, let me say that Americans, in my view, and I include myself here, too often forget that no nation on earth has ever had a right to exist. All nations, America, Peru, Malaysia, Uganda, or any other you choose to mention, will exist only as long as they have viable economies, political societies marked by a measure of cohesion and amity, and a government that avoids excessive intervention in domestic and economic affairs, as well as the affairs of foreign peoples. We are, I think you will agree, in deep trouble on each of these points, which is why Dr. Paul's ideas and candidacy have struck such a resonant chord among non-elite Americans. Those people who worked for a living, raised children, never went to Harvard or Yale, and approached their lives and their world with decency and common sense and not arcane theories. For America,
amen, Michael.
For America, Dr. Paul's advocacy of a non-interventionist foreign policy represents a step away from the precipice of economic, social, and military ruin. As the founders knew, and as Dr. Paul reminds all of us, unnecessary offensive wars involve us in foreign problems we do not understand and which are often intractable, problems that bleed our country financially and in the lives of our soldier children, and in wars that inevitably lead, as we have seen in the past decade, to the contraction of domestic liberty. For this reason, I am most pleased to have been able to speak to you today, and I am even more pleased to offer my minimal support, I guess is what I have, and prayers to Dr. Paul and his campaign for a foreign policy driven only by common sense and the genuine national interests of all of the American people. Thank you.
for